get asked that question a lot, whether there's actually like bad energies and presences and good and beautiful things. And, it's interesting because the best way that I feel I've been taught, or my experience of it, is that yes, there's polarities to energies. There's polarities to presences and spirits and things like that. And I'm going to call the word polarity because I feel like that's a healthier way to start, just because when we think about good or bad, our mind very quickly tries to categorize a situation or presences, and sometimes we can take away from the gift of what something's trying to deliver, because very quickly we're trying, and it is part of survival, right? The survival, the mind, if we see something or feel something, we're very quickly trying to identify, is it safe or is it not safe? So I get that is a very important part of our experience, but we get to decide consciously where we guide our mind, our attention, and how do we respond to it. But with that being said, the way that I've seen it as a little girl, and even just right now at the stage that I'm at in my life, is that there are blobs that, and so there's stages to this. So there's blobs that I see, and these blobs gather, and I'll see them sometimes in people's homes. If a person's in depression or very sad, very negative, and there's things going on that has a person like guiding their thoughts and their emotion in a certain way. And best so I could explain it, I'll see these blobs. Sometimes I'll see it with people. And usually that's when I can see that their thoughts, their emotions, their attention are creating things that are heavy, and what we can label as negative and we can label as heavy. I keep being told to say the word heavy. So those things do hover and they move around, or at least that's how I've seen it. It makes me think of the movie Raya. And there's a cartoon named Raya. And in the movie, there's these dark things that move around, and they suck people's life source, which sounds intense. That's not what's happening, but that's a good way for me to describe it, these blobs. And what happens is, and what I've come to be taught by the angels, is that ultimately we are walking creators. We are in a very co-creative experience, and we're both human as much as we're spirit. And we enter into moments in our lives that we're being asked and invited, actually daily and all the time, to really be attentive to what we're giving life to, right? What we're creating, what we're taking form for ourselves, but also what forms we're giving freedom into the world. And when I see these blobs hovering around people or near people or in spaces, I can tell that people have been leaning in a direction that has been feeding more doubt, more fears, or insecurities, more scarcity, more lack, more hate, more anger. And the person may be having challenges around that. And what I've also seen is that sometimes these blobs look like entities. They look like spirits. They look like scary presences. They look like something that maybe we see in a horror movie, right? Because it kind of builds up, and it doesn't mean it's connected or attached to the person, but it can become its own entity. And sometimes these things, thank you, this is how they want me to describe it. They're like, how do you want me to explain this? Because they're showing me, it's like they're like walking and hovering in all different places sometimes, and it's hard to even think about that. But what happens is that that's also why the angels like to inspire us. That's why God, divine universe, likes to inspire us to see the beauty of our life, to see the blessings, because we magnetize to us that which is a magnet or a mirror to what we're creating and putting out there. So if we're walking around having mistrust and hate and anger, then we magnetize other entities and energies that are lower vibration. Now, what happens as well is that, and I know this is going to sound a little more intense and different, is that I've also seen spirits that are no longer here, loved ones that have passed, and other people's loved ones that have passed, that tend to linger. And they linger not because they're punished, and they're not lingering because they're bad, nothing like that. What I've come to witness is that sometimes, especially with suicides and certain traumatic deaths, not all of them, what happens is that the spirit and the soul continues to be in their purpose, right? They're still continuing to do what they were here to do before they passed, but they take form in doing it in a different way. So their spirits are moving around trying to identify the completion of that intention and that purpose. And sometimes these spirits do linger and they're around, and sometimes these kids may see them, and sometimes these kids may be scared by them, right? Because they do, their energy looks a little darker, not because they're bad, they just look darker. And they can feel heavy as they're moving through their own journey of purpose in a different way than if we were human. If they would have stayed human, they would have been able to move things a lot faster, but they move slower. It's the best way that I could explain it. So the vibration is like muck, you know, like mud. And sometimes these spirits and these presences show up for people who are very able to be a voice of love, or be a presence of love, or be a vehicle of love in which they can communicate with or connect with, because that person has the gift and the ability, through whether it's through prayer, through thought, through love, to acceptance, through seeing them, that can help them feel the freedom, that can lead them to move through their purpose, through what they're here to complete very quickly. Because ultimately, in a deep, deep level, all of us are here to awaken back to love. That's our biggest purpose, to awaken back to love, being love, and accepting and receiving love. And really getting to a place that allows us to forgive in such a way that we become that love, that unconditional love. So a lot of these energies and entities that we might see that are low vibration, it's not that we need to fear them or that they're going to take control over us, but on some level, especially if we're seeing them or we're feeling their presence, or it's becoming uncomfortable, you know, I like to just encourage people to go back to your power, go back to your confidence, go back to why you are being chosen. You're not weak. If you're an empath, that's not your weakness, that's not your kryptonite, that's your superpower. And it's like, it's our ability to shift that perspective that literally puts us in a very different trajectory, but it puts us in a different place of changing such energies and such presences and such things. As I mentioned with the presence that showed up in my room, my decision to really lean into love and being love and only light was real, that thing was literally given freedom and it turned into light. So it's not that those things aren't around, and it's not that those things don't exist. But on some level, we have to lean into knowing that if we're seeing them, we're feeling them, or it's coming up, that even if we are in our own depression, even if we're struggling ourselves, there is a power within us to turn that back into light. There's a power within us to actually lean into love, wake into love, share love, become love, receive love in such a way that actually can completely change this presence into its light presence and into its freedom and into supporting and becoming the thing that it's destined to be through its purpose, which is love.